Bell, Gore, Brown, Bryant, either Deshaun Jackson, and if you do that, you're poor with the rest of what I'm going to tell you,
Okay.
or Pierre Garçon, and their difference in price is $300. But then Jordan Reed, Dustin Hopkins, and Pittsburgh. And then you can go, if you do the Deshaun Jackson one, you can do the other two kickers that are cheaper than Hopkins. And then if you do the Pierre Garçon one, you can do all the kickers. They all fit. So, again, that's your choice from there on. I like Hopkins just with the matchup if I had to pick one. But, again.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this. Throughout everything that we've broken down in all these Thursday lineups, who's the one player you have to start in every lineup? I think I've figured out part of your chain here, but it looks like Le'Veon Bell.
For sure. Le'Veon Bell's the one.
Yeah.
He's the guy that I expect to get another 30 points from. Maybe not. I mean, that's unrealistic. 30 points is always a high water mark for any running back or wide receiver, whatever. But he's going to go off, I would imagine. If there's one guy I had to bet my life on who's going to go off, it's him.
Yeah, he's probably the top tier of what we might see there. So that really breaks down a lot. We've covered Bradford, we've covered Prescott, we've covered Cousins, we've even covered Scott Tolzien. We haven't really done anything with Matthew Stafford, and I think the reason we haven't is simply because that Vikings defense could stymie him.
I think they're going to. I think you're going to see, only because of the way the game, the first time they played, the way it panned out, I think they have a chip on their shoulder. It's a must-win game for them. Obviously, there's everything on the table that says they have to win. The only thing I don't like about it is that's at Detroit.
Yeah, and nobody's lit up that Vikings defense this year. Nobody has.
No, not at all.
They've lost games, but nobody's lit them up.
No, and they're playing with, like I said, they're what they did last week was really impressive. And I know Arizona's not the same team they were last year, but
no, they're not. They're not even close. There's something wholeheartedly wrong with that team.
Yeah, so I feel comfortable with what I think they're going to do with them.
Okay. That said, that wraps up the Thursday idea of what we want to do. I want to jump into our Sunday stuff quickly.
Holy moly. What a fun time that was. Sunday sucked. I have 2 lineups made, and it took. I spent 2 hours, and I have 2 lineups made. We can just go real easy. I know I'm jumping ahead of myself. I'm sick of getting the tight end spot wrong, so I built my team around Greg Olsen. I don't give a shit, but that's what I did.
No, sometimes you got to try to combat things as best you can. I know that Greg Olsen's playing my Raiders, and that's not my favorite scenario to start somebody, but I never let my heart get in the way of this. I never do.
Oakland's 9th worst points to the opposing Titans, and
they have been since the dawn of the century.
Pretty much was sucky this week, so I had to go with the surest of sure things, like I said, in that regard. So that's what I did. I like Russell Wilson at my quarterback spot this week.
Yeah, Tampa's secondary stinks.
Yeah, I did a couple things. Russell Wilson, just for the sake of, we know we won't get into all the stats or all that, but yeah, they're horrible. Then I really like David Johnson at the running back spot for, again, the same reasons. Atlanta just gives up so many touchdowns. Johnson is the surest thing left on the board at running back this week. I just think, regardless of the matchup, he'll get you 20 points or close to it.
He's been red hot. He really has.
Yeah. And then third, I really like Rashad Jennings against Cleveland for the sake that Cleveland kind of shut down Antonio Brown last week and showed that they're way more vulnerable to the run, it seems like. So
let me point something out real quick to our listeners as I'm starting to explore something too. Pardon me for the interruption here, but because of all these Thursday games, if you go out and investigate FanDuel and DraftKings, you'll see that all of these great Sunday contests are still open because everybody's dumped their wad in the Thursday stuff. You still have an opportunity to get into all these good matchups on both FanDuel and DraftKings for Sunday. So the early Sunday matchups, the late day, get into those because they're there and they're open.
Exactly.
Just a heads up.
And again, a lot of the tough choices from our Thursday games are gone. So there's 3 wide receivers from the Redskins that can give you problems. Cole Beasley's been giving fits to everybody in their lineups this year.
He sure has.
You know, you're not going to have Bell. Frank Gore gives you fits because he's so cheap and he, goes off. And
sneaky play every week.
You shake your fist when you see his 20 points and so cheap when you went heavy and your guy got stuffed with your Lamar Millers of the world.
Yeah, that's exactly the name I was looking at right now. You spent $8,300 on Lamar Miller to have 18 yards.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
or Spencer Ware, for that matter, to leave the game in the first quarter with a concussion. Not that was his.
Exactly. So we don't have the Jordan Reeds to contend with. We don't have the potential Witten outburst that he did one week. So we really have it. It's much easier for us to do in a sense. But again, it slims the herd and kind of made it more challenging. But so I like Rashad Jennings. I also like, depending on if you want to go high, I like Jay Ajayi for the second spot. Faced in San Francisco.
Okay.
I think Miami's going to figure out they can only win if they give the guy the ball 25 times.
He's a huge part of how that offense clicks, and the front 5 blocks really well in Miami. They really do.
They do. I don't know why. When you see what they did last week, I don't know what their plan is when they get away from it. Now, I don't think they got behind too early. It was one of those. Didn't they lose in the last second?
No, they won. They beat. They scored a last-second touchdown to beat the Rams 14-10.
Okay, that's right. Okay. So last-second touchdown. Yeah, that tells me they gave him the ball 16 times.
They did. That Rams defense, though, is very good. The Rams team is very bad, but that defense, they kept Miami off the field.
Yeah. Well,
they really did.
25 touches to him, but either way. I like him, but again, it's a little more challenging to fill a roster, so let's just go with Jennings. And I like Larry Fitzgerald. Atlanta is just, again, they just love giving up touchdowns to the wide receiver position as well. So
they do.
I like that. Oh, geez. Doug Baldwin against Tampa Bay. I'm stacking him.
I think that with Wilson, and your lineup and my lineup are sounding eerily familiar.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. He's coming on fire, by the way. I think he's going to really start. I mean, throwing a touchdown pass, that was awesome last week.
Yeah, that certainly doesn't hurt, does it?
No, so let's get 100 yards and a touchdown from him, and that makes my day. Then I really like, this guy is kind of sneaky, and I tried to pick him up in our standard league, and he was already picked. Devontae Parker.
Yeah, if he's healthy, he's dangerous.
Yeah, and again, at his cost, there's some guys that you can rotate in at this last spot. So let's say I want to start 3 lineups. Maybe I want to put a Steve Smith or a Rashard Matthews in that spot as well. Mm-hmm. So that's probably what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to start this identical lineup I'm telling you and then rotate out this 3rd wide receiver spot for the 2 names I just mentioned.
Okay.
So keep that in mind. So then that allows me Greg Olsen, which, again, he's the only matchup that called to me, and I'm so sick of being wrong with
Yeah.
It's like, watch him get 4 fucking points. But
that's true, too. And you know what? That team is so hit or miss there as well. So hit or miss.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Anyhow, so
for the record, to speak on that quickly, that C.J. Fedorowicz was open all night Monday night against the Raiders. He was open all night.
He was. He had a couple drops and everything.
Yep.
I did look at him. I still,
I'm just suggesting that playing the Greg Olsen against the Raiders, it's a nice look.
It really is.
They just don't cover tight ends well. They really haven't in 15, 16 years.
No, So I like that play. And then with my kicker, I really like Dan Carpenter against Jacksonville, especially from Buffalo. Dan Carpenter, Buffalo at Jacksonville.
Sure, insert Karen Carpenter joke. Gotcha.
Excuse me. I think the benefit, number one, of it being cold, I think you're going to have one of those slobber knockers.
Yeah.
Game, there's not much happening through the air at Buffalo anyhow, and Jacksonville's pretty good against the pass.
No, if you notice, Tyrod Taylor does not throw the ball.
No, he doesn't really have anyone to throw it to.
Nope.
So I think that really bodes well for putting up the most. I think they're worst or second worst in points allowed to the kicker. So that to me says everything I need to know about that game. Yeah, Jacksonville's the worst. So
Yeah.
I like that. And now whether or not you can afford it, and it all depends on what wide receiver you started if you start doing that carousel, because I have a little bit of money left over, but I need $300 to make the difference. My two defenses that I like are Buffalo, again, for what I just told you, and then Baltimore. I like the fact that you're going to have A.J. Green gone. I just think Baltimore, if you look at the points they've been putting up, they're pretty solid defensively all year. It's not that Cincinnati gives up too many points at that position,
No, but that Cincinnati team, this is it. They're on the wrong side of the mountain, and they are rolling down rapidly.
You're right. You can't, it's not too. You can't really run on Baltimore. So we have that going for us. They've lost, obviously, two of their skill positions, vital to their offense, which, by the way, if you want to start Tyler Eifert in some form, that's probably a good play this week just because
he's their only target.
Yeah, and I think they're going to have more. They're running out of people to catch the ball. I think if people want with Tyler Boyd, that might be a good fit for his cost.
I saw that. I looked at it, and I'll tell you what, I like Brandon LaFell better.
I do too. I wanted him in our standard league. He's already established himself. It's one of those no-brainer picks where there's already a rapport established.
There is, and he's been a pro for 7 years. I don't see, he's certainly not going to step in and be A.J. Green.
No, and he's not going to have too many games where he's going to be gone. But I think he's get a touchdown and 90 yards and do something this week, and Baltimore gets up lots of it in the air. But overall, I got excited when I saw Green go down because to me, the one guy who's going to get a lot more work and it's really going to affect him with the most upside is Eifert, I think.
Yeah, and that's a good football player. But I like Brandon LaFell. I think Boyd moves into a number 2 position.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
totally.
I think that Cincinnati team, and I've said this before on the podcast numerous times, I've spent years defending Marvin Lewis, and I'm done.
Well, he doesn't deserve it anymore. He pulled a few out of his hat the last few years when he's had some injuries. My
argument was always in that division to go to the playoffs for 10 years straight is something very special.
Yeah, well.
But he was one and done every year, and after a while it's, okay, you are one. Now this is you. You're one and done. You're not going to get this team over any hump.
Yeah, I don't know what they need to do. I mean, what player?
They need to not Vontaze Burfict the Pittsburgh Steelers in the fourth quarter. That's what they need to do, is they need to not pull that kind of bullshit and take yourself out of games, which ultimately fell on the coach because it's a disciplinary issue, and I guess that's a whole other show for another time, but always good to talk about what goes on and what we think causes situations and scenarios. But if you're squared away there, man, I got 2 FanDuel Sunday lineups I want to throw your way and get some feedback.
Shoot.
One of which was eerily similar to what you just coughed up.
Okay.
I don't like to start quarterbacks on the road going cross-country, but had I done that all year long, I probably would have been okay. For example, I the morning of the Raiders-Bucks game, before I went to the game, I drank 2 Bloody Marys, and I went in my room and I said, I'll screw it, and I plugged in a whole Oakland Raiders stack.
Okay.
And as you know, that was the day that Carr threw for 5 million yards. Cooper, Crabtree, Seth Roberts, all of them got involved. I had them all in the lineup, and I walked out of there. I think it was a $273 total day winner with just that lineup.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a great day. Really enjoyable. So that said, I'm not afraid of the Seattle Seahawks in the slightest coming all the way down to Tampa. This is a team that went into Foxborough and punched the New England Patriots in the mouth.
Exactly. The weather's going to be nice.
Yeah.
They match up well with what they do.
Yeah, Russell Wilson's a pro. Jimmy
healthy.
Graham is healthy.
That's what we're not realizing, or the fantasy world isn't realizing, is he just wasn't very healthy.
He was hurt. He was banged up. He was running around on a bad ankle. You can't do it. They have a different left tackle this year. What's his name is gone. Russell Okung is now in Denver, which changes things. Russell Wilson's the real deal. Any team in the NFL would love to have him. And as far as my fantasy team goes on Sunday, I'd love to have him. So I paid him $7,500.
Yep.
It's done. So Russell Wilson at QB. I love David Johnson. You actually just have to start him because he is the focal point of that offense. You have to start him. I snuck Jay Ajayi in this lineup because Miami is at home. They've won 5 straight, and the San Francisco 49ers suck.
Okay. That's
They
cool.
can't stop anybody.